Hello watch enthusiasts and welcome to Watch Chronicler. Horage have featured quite extensively in my recent content as they've worked to develop their own Tourbillon movement over the last few months. Having seen the work to produce these movements from early planning to development and finally to production, it's clear in my mind that this was a remarkable effort in the space of only a few short months. Nevertheless, oddly enough, I'd like to take the opportunity to talk about how many parts in this Tourbillon movement are actually shared with other Horage designs, which you might find in their more standard watches. The Tourbillon is usually regarded as a prestigious and perhaps even unapproachable mechanical complication, yet little thought is often given to the origins of the componentry used around such complications within a movement. You see, if you want some of the technology within the Tourbillon which Horage have been presenting over the last few months, you can actually enjoy this in far more accessible watches from the brand. So in today's video, find out just how much of this rather remarkable Tourbillon actually exists inside Horage's current and future range. Before I begin this video, I must state that this is a video sponsored by Horage. However, as stated in previous videos about their brand, this would still be a project of great interest to me and one featured on this channel courtesy of just how impressive, ambitious and successful it's been. Nevertheless, for the sake of transparency, I think this point should still be made. So where should we begin? Well, I think it's important to tumble down the rabbit hole of just how tourbillons in the watch industry are created. As you'll know from my previous videos, a tourbillon is essentially a rotating, regulating organ within a movement which negates the effects of gravity upon the timekeeping of a mechanism. These days though, it's more of a technical demonstration for a brand because short of a minute repeater, it's about as difficult to achieve as mechanisms can get. But you see, most brands which approach the challenge of adding a tourbillon to their catalogue at a relatively affordable price will do so by buying off-the-shelf movements. For many, this is a very sensible choice given the perishingly small production numbers desired, as well as the limited applications for developing your own movement if the rest of your range is largely based on third-party movements. Ultimately, the expense is just too great, and many brands simply aren't geared for this kind of technical development, whilst others are more specialised in finishing than engineering, which does make sense and I think is no problem. In most cases, these such movements are produced by complication makers such as Les who are well respected for, amongst other things, adding column wheel and flyback function to the Veljoux 7750. Currently, this brand has a few different tourbillon movements in its catalogue, but these are largely based on existing technology from the ETA 2824, the most popular Swiss automatic movement, the Veljoux 7750, the most popular mechanical chronograph, and the Pissur 7001, a delightful and classical Swiss manual movement. This makes sense for small-run products, but it must be recognised means an often imperfect arrangement and limited applications. With a brand like Horage, a brand inextricably linked to technical innovation, even from their point of conception, I really can't imagine such a tenuous link between the heart of the Tourbillon, a watch designed to be their flagship, make no mistake, and their own development. This is why I was actually thrilled to hear, a few months ago and in the depth of international uncertainty, that Horage were going to make this piece and this movement from scratch. If you're enjoying this video, please remember to like, subscribe and comment, and follow us on Instagram to always know about our videos, podcasts and articles, as well as the watches you all deserve to know about. Speaking of that, head over to watchchronicler.com to access the brunt of our content about watches and anything related, including an interesting article recently about Sir Sterling Moss and his watch which has recently come up for sale, including a rather amusing anecdote about my grandmother and he when they were stopped in London by a policeman after a handbrake turn. So where does this tourbillon movement fit into Horage's ecosystem? Well, at present, Horage and their sister brand THE Plus have two movements, K1 and K2. K1 is their current bread and butter automatic general purpose movement. Now I've explained this movement at length in its own video, but it's a unidirectionally winding automatic movement with a central rotor, 3 hands, large date, small seconds, and a power reserve indicator. It was also the movement which brought Horage onto the market with their very own silicon escapement. The second movement presented by Horage is a far more recent and potentially ambitious project, K2. While still in development, this movement is going to be the next step for this brand. On the face of things, K2 can be seen in two different ways. The first is a movement taking features traditionally associated with dress watches and introducing them to an all-purpose rugged environment. The second is as a rugged everyday movement, which has looked into the world of dress watches to find additional refinement. However you look at it, this micro-rotor movement with a thickness of only 2.9mm in standard form, but still a 65-hour power reserve, and up to 3.6mm with a power reserve indicator, large date, GMT function, and a day-night indicator, represents a move towards where Horage believes the industry is going, smaller movements for more elegant watch sizing. Putting aside the flying tourbillon itself, you can trace the rest of Horage's tourbillon back to these two movements. Rather perversely, this tourbillon movement seems a rather simple beast by comparison. Whilst it shares a lot with other Horage pieces, it has far less to do as it features traditional manual winding, two hands, and a regulating organ, the tourbillon, which takes the role of the second hand. To put this in terms of parts, K1 has 174 components. How many do you reckon KT has? Only 101. Don't let that fool you though. As has been shown by other brands trying to produce such a movement, it is clearly a difficult task, and as shown in my previous videos, all that's going on in the tourbillon cage itself really is cutting edge. Still, no escapement, no matter how good, can remove the need for all the other fundamentals of a watch movement, in the same way as a Ferrari and a Fiat both have four wheels, a roof and a steering wheel, irrespective of the rest. In that case, how much of the Tourbillon 1 do you actually get in a standard production Horage? Well, rather surprisingly considering what I've been talking about, only about 10 to 15 parts were taken directly from K1 in the production of the Tourbillon, and only another 5 or 10 were closely developed from their counterparts in other Horage movements. Even so, only about 20% of the KT tourbillon movement actually had to be produced via brand new engineering. This may seem strange, but given this brand's work in the last decade and a half, 80% of this movement could be put together with the knowledge that it would work due to the testing done with this company on their other movements. The result is a genuinely reliable tourbillon movement for everyday use, and a demonstration of serious development for the rest of the range for other applications in future. So what does this mean? Well, firstly, it means that if you buy a watch from Horage with either of these movements, K1 or K2, you are in essence getting part of that tourbillon, which is undeniably cool. However, it also means rather a lot for the future of this tourbillon movement. Usually, reliability and the ability to have such a movement serviced is provided by having most components fundamental to operation, the spring, gear train, keyless works, etc., cannibalized from proven designs. At Horage, though, there is the benefit of such proven designs being modified by the very people who invented them. Of course, I haven't yet handled one of these watches ahead of delivery around February, and I haven't had the chance to test reliability yet, but from all I understand, the improvements have not only been able to give a longer 100-hour power reserve, but also a much more durable construction, as seen in, for instance, the new titanium tourbillon cage. Housed on rare for this complication ball bearings, the cage can be more shock resistant, whilst also losing weight, two things highly beneficial for everyday functionality. Now, I realise that this video may seem only positive, but frankly it's difficult not to be excited about this project. You see, as currently accepted Swiss movements become more and more dated, and more brands seek alternatives, I'm keen to embrace a movement which seems most likely to replace them. From what I can't tell you about what Horage are currently working on, I have utter confidence that it will be one of these movements. Ultimately, I can't wait to handle this tourbillon to see if it lives up to my expectations, although I do wonder whether the rest of Horage's range add to the tourbillon or vice versa. This is of course debatable, yet in any case, I'm glad to see a trickle down of genuinely high-level watchmaking to affordable levels which most of us can save up for. But what do you think of this tourbillon movement? Does it benefit from its close relation to production models, or should it be more elevated in your opinion? Let me know in the comment section below, and remember to like, share and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. This is Armon from WatchChronicle.com. Out.